End of the call. Hello? You can come over. I noticed the video call hadn't ended completely. As I tried to end it, my husband was making a call to someone. I found his overly familiar demeanor puzzling. Peeking with my in-laws, I witnessed an unexpected move by my husband. My name is Catherine Johnson. I'm a 36-year-old housewife. Currently, I live with my in-laws and our 3 children. My husband was assigned overseas for 3 years, and I was apprehensive about raising the children alone during this period. I worried about potential illnesses or injuries. After discussing my concerns with my husband, we decided to move in with my in-laws. My husband, Bob, and I have been classmates, dating since high school. I've known my in-laws since then. We decided to marry once we were financially stable after graduating from college, and we got married when I was 24. Bob wanted to support the family soon, so he joined a large company. He was ambitious and was highly regarded even though he had just started. Therefore, we were able to get married sooner than planned. Both our parents looked forward to our wedding. They were delighted at our ceremony. Both families got along well, having interactions even before our marriage, feeling just like one big family. Both parents were very pleased with our wedding, and whenever I remember the ceremony, it brings back happy memories. On my side, aside from my parents, I have an older brother, 3 years my senior. He lives far away, and we occasionally meet. He sees Bob as a real younger brother, and they've been close since school. They both played sports in school and even enjoy watching games together. When our children were born, he was thrilled, always bringing gifts. Such a caring brother. However, tragedy struck when our parents passed away in an accident shortly after our first child was born. The last time I saw them, they were gleaming with joy, eagerly waiting to see their grandchild grow. Their faces, full of hope for the future and believing in continued happiness, is my last memory of them. I had always looked forward to doing things with my parents and my newborn child. But, just as they were in such high spirits, they were taken from me suddenly in an accident. Preparing for their funeral with my older brother, I was so shocked that I felt numb for quite a while. While preparing for the funeral with my brother, I was in shock for a while. My memories of that period are blurry. During the funeral, I was naturally overwhelmed by a sense of loss. I remember weeping quietly, with tears streaming down my face non-stop. My brother desperately tried to comfort me as I grieved deeply, but I felt like I wasn't truly present. Even after the funeral, it was my husband, Bob, who supported me. Even though Bob was close with my parents and grieved their loss, and despite his busy work schedule and taking care of our child, he was there for me. Seeing how Bob handled everything, I realized I couldn't stay like this and began to slowly recover. When I apologized for the burden I had placed on him during that time, Bob just laughed. Couples are there to support each other during tough times. It's a given for me to be there for you, Catherine. It's only natural to put on a brave face for our family even if it's hard, said Bob. Inspired by Bob's attitude, I vowed to do my best for our family. My in-laws, knowing how devastated I was during that period, became even more concerned about me. Catherine, we consider you our very own daughter. Please, don't hesitate to rely on us. We're here to help and support you anytime, they would tell me. Knowing them, I was reassured that living together would be worry-free. So, we canceled our apartment contract, completed the necessary paperwork to transfer our child's preschool, and moved into my in-laws' home. Our kids are attached to their grandparents, so we changed preschools for them to live together, but they didn't seem to mind. The house is a 2-story owned property that Bob had built when he was young. It was designed to be child-friendly and to be their residence in their old age, with attention to accessibility, making it a safe home for small children. The house is slightly bigger than our previous apartment, and given our young kids, moving in didn't pose any problems. Our old apartment wasn't 2-story, so initially, the kids found the stairs fascinating and often played on them together. I was concerned about how the change in environment might affect them, but seeing them play so energetically eased my worries. Even though they had to switch preschools, they seemed to adjust well and made new friends quickly. Though I was anxious they might follow from the changes, they've been healthy, which puts me at ease. Ever since we moved to New York, we've been living harmoniously with my in-laws, supporting one another. At first, since I was a stay-at-home mom, I intended to handle all the household chores. However, my in-laws proposed we share the responsibilities. While I took care of preparing meals, my mother-in-law did the laundry, though sometimes we'd switch roles. Apparently, she's not great at cooking, so she was relieved, and she even complimented my dishes. The house cleaning was shared between my in-laws and me, freeing up more of my time. I now get to spend more time with my kids, and I believe I've become more attuned to their subtle changes. The only issue, if it can be called that, is the kids missing their playtime with Bob. They adore him, and whenever he had time, he used to dote on them a lot. Despite his tiring job, Bob would sometimes tell me to take a break and handle some chores. He works hard, both at his job and with the kids, so much that I sometimes worried if he was resting enough. Even though you work and handle house chores, are you sure you're getting enough rest? When I asked Bob this, he assured me he was fine. Bob is gentle, family-oriented, and has a bright and cheerful demeanor. Being overseas, it's not so easy to travel back and forth, and in the span of 3 years, he only came back to the States once. Video calls with Bob while he's on his overseas assignment are something my kids and I really look forward to. With a 14-hour time difference, finding a common time can be tricky, but we try to video call at least once a month. We also exchange emails regularly, but nothing beats seeing each other's faces. We're always curious about his life abroad and want to ensure he's okay. Recently, the kids have grown more interested in the glimpses of foreign settings and Bob's stories during these calls. Today at 9 p.m., we're scheduled for a video call with Bob. The kids, eager to talk to their father, have even taken naps to ensure they stay awake. As I set up the computer for the call, the kids line up properly and soon start a lively conversation with Bob. "Been a while, how've you been?" When Bob's face appeared on the screen and I called out to him, the kids responded with joyous voices. "Hey, Dad. We're doing good. Guess what?" They began, animatedly using their hands to emphasize their points. Bob listened with a delighted expression. I had so much I wanted to discuss with Bob, but I decided to wait until the kids were asleep. My in-laws and I watched the conversation with warm smiles. Bob mentioned he had work later, but it sounded like he had about 2 hours to spare. After the kids, I was hoping to have some one-on-one time with my husband. Thanks to the consistent help from my in-laws, there were things difficult to discuss or issues I had been facing that I really wanted to share with Bob. About 30 minutes into the video call, perhaps because of their energetic chatter, the kids began to look sleepy. Even though they had taken a nap, it was around their usual bedtime, so they were likely tired. Yet, they seemed to still have more to say and were trying their best to stay awake. The youngest is mostly asleep, occasionally jolting awake, but quickly succumbing to drowsiness again. Seeing them in such a state, Bob gently suggested they go to bed. "Getting sleepy, huh? Just 1 more month and Dad'll be coming back to New York. We'll chat loads then." Bob's overseas assignment was coming to an end in a month. The kids were eagerly awaiting his return, but they still seemed to have so much to say. "Remember, you have school and preschool tomorrow. Let's call it a night." My in-laws and I also persuaded the kids, and soon they were off to bed. As the drowsy kids waved goodbye, Bob waved back. As I stood to take the kids to their rooms, my in-laws quietly offered, "You two probably have a lot to talk about. Leave the kids with us and take your time." Holding our youngest, who had fallen asleep, my in-laws walked the other kids to their room by the hand. Grateful for my mother-in-law's words, I settled in to chat with Bob. Even in just a month, it's easy to notice how much kids grow. When it came to talking about the kids, the topics were endless. At the parent-teacher conference, they seemed to be having a great time. When the teacher asked them a question, they answered confidently. They proudly told me all about it afterwards. It was adorable. Ever since our eldest started elementary school, with Bob being overseas, he's always looked forward to attending those conferences. I've been sending pictures regularly, but he always wants a detailed account during our calls. Seeing how much Bob values our family and takes joy in the kids' milestones always reminds me of how fortunate I am to have married such a wonderful man, and I cherish our current happiness. Besides updates about the kids, we also discussed some challenges, concerns, and future plans. After a while, my in-laws joined back in our conversation. Before we knew it, it was midnight. Bob had work to start, and we had an early day ahead, so we wrapped up the call. "Good night. You have work now, so take care," I said. Intending to end the call, I mistakenly only turned off my camera, leaving the call still active. Realizing I hadn't fully disconnected, my drowsy brain scrambled to properly end the call. "Call's over. Hello? I'm done with the family call. You can come over now." Then, without noticing the computer screen, Bob started making a call to someone. He had said he was about to get ready for work, but now he's inviting someone over? Moreover, the way he spoke was quite friendly, giving me an uneasy feeling and making me hesitant to end it. It felt not just friendly, but there was a kind of sweetness as if he was speaking to a lover. "What's going on?" Noticing my reaction, my in-laws asked, curious. "I thought he was heading to work, but it seems like he invited someone over. It's bothering me." I felt guilty about eavesdropping, even though he's my husband, but I told them I just wanted to check who was coming. Seeing Bob's behavior on the phone, it seemed like my mother-in-law felt the same way and agreed with me. So we decided to watch together. Although I had a bad feeling, I reassured myself thinking, maybe he's just close with a coworker, and I'm overthinking this. However, a foreign woman walked into the house, chatting familiarly with Bob and even touching him. No matter the cultural differences between the US and other countries, you wouldn't just invite a woman into your home or be this intimate. I instinctively looked at my in-laws, and both had a grim expression. They murmured in disbelief, watching the video as if seeing something inexplicable. But just as I thought maybe I was overreacting and it was just cultural differences, the two clearly began to engage in infidelity. "Wait, what?" Seeing Bob's shocking behavior, I was more calm than angry and quickly pressed the record button. My in-laws had a mix of guilt towards me and anger towards Bob on their faces. "Catherine, are you okay? You don't have to watch this if it's too hard," my mother-in-law said, concerned about me who was visibly shaking. Even in this situation, the care from my in-laws brought some comfort. "I need to see this for evidence." "I'm fine," I assured her and continued to watch. While I felt disgusted and angry about being cheated on, I was surprisingly calm. After the appalling act, the two began to talk on the bed. From their conversation, it was evident that the woman knew Bob was married, and it seemed to be a relationship limited to his time abroad. "Thanks for taking me on that trip the other time." "No problem. Thanks to your guidance, I had a great time." It turned out Bob had taken the woman on a trip recently. The destination was a place our kids had expressed interest in and we had talked about visiting as a family someday. And since they had no acquaintances abroad, they seemed to have enjoyed their trip without any inhibitions. "But you covered the expenses, right? Is the money okay?" The woman spoke worriedly about money, seeming nervous about her affair being discovered. Unbelievably, Bob had been telling me he earned less than he actually did, and he had confided in me that he had been spending the extra on his leisure. Apparently, his company has 2 payroll locations. With this shocking revelation, all of Bob's past actions started to seem suspicious. My trust in Bob seemed to shatter audibly. By the time I finished observing Bob's behavior, it was past 2 a.m. Stunned by the shocking truth, the 3 of us were speechless. "Let's get some sleep for now, and then think about what's next," my father-in-law muttered, and we decided to head to our bedrooms. Once in bed, I was wide awake, unable to sleep. Bob had always been caring, proactive in work and childcare, and kind. We've known each other since high school, so I thought I understood him pretty well. I never thought that the Bob I knew was a lie, but with recent events, I felt I no longer knew him. I had always believed he'd never cheat, and if it were just eyewitness accounts or photos, I probably wouldn't have believed he was having an affair. But having seen the scene on a video call, I was in shock and my thoughts were frozen, but gradually various emotions towards Bob began to well up. I found myself wiping away tears that wouldn't stop flowing. Knowing I had to be up early, I tried to sleep, but my mind kept returning to Bob, and my drowsiness vanished. Before I knew it, it was morning, and I hadn't slept a wink. I used makeup to hide the redness around my eyes from crying, and started preparing for the day. "Good morning, breakfast is ready." I called out cheerfully to my children, trying to act as usual. "Mom, are you okay? Your eyes are red. Are you all right?" I had tried to act strong in front of the kids, but they looked worried. I couldn't hide my bloodshot eyes and had caused them concern. "It's okay, honey. I just stayed up late last night, so I might be a bit tired." "Oh, Mom. You gotta get proper sleep," I replied with a smile, and the kids mimicked my tone, saying the same thing, and laughed, looking relieved. After seeing off the kids, I decided to take a break because my in-laws were concerned. Maybe because I had moved around to prepare for the kids' morning, this time I fell asleep instantly. I wished that the events of the night had just been a dream, and as I lay down, my consciousness faded instantly. I had planned to rest for a short while but ended up sleeping until the evening. My father-in-law had picked up the kids from kindergarten, and my mother-in-law had prepared dinner. "I'm so sorry for sleeping so much." "Thank you." I apologized as I immediately helped my mother-in-law and carried on as usual. When night fell and the kids were asleep, I spoke to my in-laws about my thoughts on the future. "I don't think I can live with Bob anymore. So, I'm considering getting a divorce." At first, I was shocked and bewildered, but I couldn't see myself forgiving a husband like Bob, who could lie like that. I felt bad for my kind in-laws, but I couldn't imagine continuing my marriage with Bob. "We're truly sorry for what our son has done. We're truly sorry." My in-laws seemed remorseful about Bob's actions and offered to help with the divorce proceedings. And Bob would be returning from abroad in a month, so I decided to quickly prepare everything by then. The next day, I immediately consulted with a lawyer known for handling infidelity and divorce cases. Also, Bob was quite active on social media, posting about his life abroad. He had been posting photos from overseas, and our kids enjoyed seeing them. I thought he might be careful about it, but since his partner seemed to be a foreigner, I thought there might be some clues on his social media. So I checked. After investigating, I found the woman he was seeing and hired a private investigator to identify her. Turns out, she worked at the same company as Bob and was a local employee there. So, I explained the situation to Bob's company and asked for their cooperation. Bob had always been a straight shooter, so they didn't believe it initially. However, after showing them the video evidence, they understood and offered their support. I also informed my brother and some close friends about the whole thing. Everyone was skeptical at first, but after showing them the video, they all sided with me. "That guy, even with a family, what was he thinking, betraying like that?" Especially my brother, who was close to Bob and trusted him with me, was quite furious. Though it was just a month's time, being a homemaker gave me the flexibility to prepare, and with the video evidence at hand, I managed to get everything ready for the divorce. With the support of my in-laws and by splitting up the necessary tasks, we managed to finish everything before Bob's return. However, explaining to the kids was a real challenge. They were attached to Bob and were eagerly waiting for his return. If I didn't tell them we won't see him anymore, even after the divorce, they might still want to live with him. But, considering their young age, I softly explained the situation with Bob and managed to convince them that we couldn't live with him any longer. "Your dad, you see, he told us a very bad lie. And I just can't forgive him. So we can't live with him anymore." "Really? Well, okay then." Since Bob had been away on work abroad before, they thought it was just another one of those times. They'll probably understand better as they grow. For now, they seem to accept the fact that they won't be living with Bob. Having finished all the preparations, I invited the newly returned Bob for a meal, saying it's been a while. I told him to meet at a private dining room in a restaurant. To Bob's surprise, not just me and the in-laws, but also some company executives and a lawyer were present in the room. By the way, my kids were with my brother, who feared he might hit Bob if he saw him. "What's going on? Why are all these people here?" In front of all these unexpected faces, Bob asked with a puzzled look. The lawyer began explaining about his infidelity and the divorce. "I haven't cheated. There must be some mistake," Bob vehemently denied, acting like a victim. Even when confronted with photos of the other woman, he insisted they were just colleagues and she was simply helping him adjust to life abroad. My husband desperately tried to explain himself, and had I not known any better, I might have thought it was all a misunderstanding. Seeing Bob lie so effortlessly, a chill ran down my spine. "You still say the same after seeing this?" Losing patience, my father-in-law, trying to keep his anger in check, showed the video evidence. Bob, clearly agitated, started to panic. "How did you get this? I didn't think I was being filmed." His employers then told him they couldn't trust him anymore and notified him of his termination. My in-laws were furious with Bob, my husband, and confronted him. "No, family is everything. Trust me, I'm not gonna get a divorce." I looked at Bob coolly, wondering what he was trying to say now. "We'll discuss the divorce in detail later," I calmly said that to a flustered Bob and left the room. That night, Bob, hoping to talk to me, came to the house where we had lived with my in-laws. However, my children and I had already moved out. Through connections from my father-in-law, we were introduced to a secure and comfortable property, and we had moved immediately. I didn't want to see Bob anymore, so I made a snap decision to move. I felt guilty about having to change schools and daycares for the kids, but they seemed fine with it, which was a relief. Bob came over and wanted to know where our new place was, but my in-laws firmly refused to tell him and gave him a piece of their mind. Bob apparently left after that. He kept sending persistent messages afterward, but I only responded about the divorce mediation and ignored the rest. He kept sending messages full of excuses. It was annoying, thinking if he didn't want this, he shouldn't have cheated in secret. Furthermore, my mother-in-law informed me that a neighbor had spotted Bob near the school and kindergarten. He was probably waiting outside to catch a glimpse of our kids and talk to me. Hearing this, I was relieved we had moved to a distant area. A few days later, at the divorce mediation, Bob had lawyered up well, and we finalized the divorce smoothly. I claimed a portion of our assets and gained custody of all 3 kids. It was also decided I would receive child support. Bob pleaded, "Please don't divorce me. I'll never cheat again. I've been good till now, right? Give me another chance. It was just a lapse in judgment." But it was too late. "You enjoyed yourself abroad without me. I don't want to see your face anymore." Bob tried to cling, but I had no trust left for him and brushed him off coldly. However, he insisted on seeing the kids periodically. I didn't want them to meet Bob, but he does have the right to see them post-divorce, and if the kids wanted to, I felt it would be cruel to stop them. So, we decided that whenever Bob meets the kids, my in-laws or my brother would be present. After the divorce, Bob, not giving up, asked friends to mediate, playing the victim. However, since I had explained the situation to them in advance, they refused him. If I hadn't informed them, they might have felt sorry for Bob, leading to further issues. I was truly glad I had informed those around me about everything. Bob was once seen as a diligent worker and a loving father. But now, everyone knew about his lies and infidelity. He had no allies. His friends distanced themselves, my in-laws kept their distance, and Bob became increasingly isolated. Currently, Bob has almost run out of savings, and he has child support to pay, so he's been working non-stop. Because his previous professional circle knows about his actions, He's taken a full-time job in a different field. He's also juggling multiple part-time jobs. In the beginning, he was excited to see the kids, but as they grew, they understood what he had done, and the meetings became less frequent. I'm not sure about his mistress since she's abroad, but I heard she received a warning from her employer. She's still overseas, so I hope at the very least she's learned her lesson about getting involved with a married man. Life after the divorce is comfortable with the asset division and child support. Considering my children's future, I started working again. It was tough on my own, but with my brother's help, I managed to raise them well. Currently, I live on my own in a town a bit away from the city, where it's not too inconvenient. Since I've shifted to remote work, I spend a lot of time at home. Now that my children have grown and moved out, I have more free time. I'm enjoying a relaxed life gardening. Occasionally, my children visit with my grandchildren. I look forward to treating them to meals I've prepared, savoring my peaceful retirement. I'm gonna take your baby and leave it in the mountains. I'm nursing my son right here, okay? Upon hearing my words, a sound of a smartphone dropping came from the other end of the phone line. It was Lisa, my sister-in-law. She must have checked the back seat, for a scream followed shortly after. Come to think of it, Lisa had always been tormenting me. Indeed, there were the scenes at the wedding reception, the constant spam emails, and the sudden visit right before I gave birth. But that scream marked the beginning of Lisa's end. My name is Michelle Anderson. I'm 27 and just recently gave birth and returned from the hospital. My husband, Michael, is completely smitten with our newborn son, Alex, and he reluctantly went to work today. I get along well with my in-laws and you could say we're living a happy married life. Except for Lisa, of course. From the very beginning, Lisa and I didn't gel well. Michael and I were classmates in middle school. Our school in a small town in Nebraska was peaceful with fewer students and an atmosphere where bullying was unheard of. Michael's family runs a decent-sized construction company in the area. Mostly working within the state but occasionally getting orders from outside. It's well regarded. Their house was large, and our group of friends would often hang out or study there. Michael's mom was always welcoming. They had a part-time helper who kept the house tidy, and during her breaks, she'd serve us snacks and drinks. One summer day, while working on homework, we heard unfamiliar, heavy footsteps. Wondering who it could be, we were soon hit with an overpowering scent of perfume. "Mikey, I'm back!" A flamboyant, large woman called his name and literally jumped on him. He pushed her away, exclaiming, "Sis, we're studying here, okay? Oh come on, Mikey. It's not nice to treat your sister like that after such a long time." She pouted. "I told you, we're studying. We have exams coming up." Yeah, whatever." She then scanned our group, pausing to look at each one of us. While she was doing that, he went to call his mom. She seemed to be sizing each of us up. When her gaze met mine, she frowned deeply. "Ew, why is she here?" No one really understood what she meant. She gestured towards some of the others and said, "You're okay, and so are you. But you." She pointed at me. "Don't get close to my Mikey. You seem so dull and gloomy." I was stunned, never having been spoken to like that before. My friends quickly jumped to my defense, saying things like, "She always helps us with homework." Or, "She's really smart." What's that got to do with anything? Being around her might make Mikey gloomy too. She waved her hands dismissively at me. She was wearing a dress with too many frills and ribbons for a summer day. And she was quite imposing, especially compared to us middle schoolers. I'm leaving. I didn't listen to my friends' pleas to stay and hurriedly left, hearing Lisa's amused laughter behind me. That day, I got an apology call from Michael. "I'm sorry for what Lisa did. She's always been like that, ever since we were kids." "Oh, really? I don't know why she said those things to you." "It's okay. It's not your fault, Michael." But since that incident, Every time someone mentioned going to his house, I hesitated. Time flew, we graduated, and went to different high schools. Our group drifted apart, and I lost touch with Michael. I bumped into him again when I moved to New York for college. After the orientation, as I was wandering through clubs trying to decide which to join, someone suddenly grabbed my arm. "Is that you, Michelle?" "Michael? Is that you?" It seemed too good to be true, but Michael was attending the same college and was in the same department as me. We had different majors, but we ended up taking many of the same classes. We started hanging out a lot. Those 4 years deepened our bond. Then came job hunting. Neither of us ended up going back to our hometowns. Michael was expected to take over his family's business, so I was surprised when I heard he wasn't returning. Then he told me, "You know, I never told you this, but I ran away from Lisa." I was shocked to hear this from him, who was looking so serious. "What do you mean?" "When I started high school, Lisa got a job at a local company through my dad's connections. She had always wanted to stay in New York and have fun, but she couldn't find a job anywhere else." Remembering the loud and overpowering presence of Lisa, I thought. So that's what happened. That's why I wanted to find a job and get married here. Is that okay with you? What do you mean by okay? You're the only one I want to be with. I couldn't help but hug Michael tightly. 3 years later, he proposed, and we decided to get married. When we went to his family home to introduce ourselves, Lisa was waiting for us. She looked at me and said, "What are you doing here? You're that girl from back then? I thought I'd never see you again after I threatened you that day." I remember being oddly calm and surprised she remembered that after 10 years. Then, at our wedding, Lisa caused a scene. "Why can't I wear the dress I like?" She had arrived in a huge, fluffy white dress. That made her look like a snowman. She arrived at the last moment. So we knew she did it on purpose. There was no time to change her outfit, and she wouldn't have fit into a backup dress anyway. She had always been on the larger side, and she seemed even bigger now. Then, at the reception, she really made a scene. After drinking way too much, she stumbled up during Michael's boss's speech, saying, "You don't have to hide that thin hair of yours," and laughingly took off his wig. I'll never forget the look on Michael's face. Everyone knows not to mention things like that, especially in public. Michael immediately ran over and apologized profusely. Our in-laws quickly grabbed Lisa from both sides and took her out. After the reception, we demanded an apology from Lisa. But she just sat there, crossed her legs, turned her head away, and said, "I will never accept your marriage. Why on earth is Michael with someone like you? Enough is enough, Lisa. You always mess with my friends and partners. Do you know why I left our hometown? It was because of you. Mikey." Lisa turned to look at Michael for the first time. "Ew, why the scary look? Oh right, it must be because of her. Of course. Ew, she's just the type to sit in the corner of the classroom and quietly read books. She must have been talking behind my back to Mikey. I'm sure of it. It was my decision not to introduce you to Michelle for so long. Everything falls apart when you're around. The reason I didn't make the varsity baseball team in high school was my own lack of skill. Yet you still went to confront the coach, and after that, I couldn't stay in the team. You remember that, don't you? But that's not true. It's awful that the coach doesn't recognize Mikey's talents. You are meant to shine. I've always supported you that way." My father-in-law sighed as he looked at Lisa, who was shouting hysterically. However, after a while, he got up, grabbed her hand, and said, "Lisa, get ready quickly. We're giving up the room you're living in now." "What are you talking about?" "Just now, there was a call from your company. That person has been an important contact of yours, having been associated with your company's deputy director for a long time." "What?" Lisa's astonished voice echoed throughout the room. "So, you were rude to him. You know what that means, right? He was quite angry, but he said he'll continue doing business with the company in exchange for firing you. I let you live on your own because you said you're working, but that's over. We won't let you out of the house so easily. And we're gonna put you to work hard here. My father-in-law's stern voice was a relief to Michelle and Michael. You too, live your life without any worries. Don't worry about the company. Even if you're going to take over, it's still a long way off. Their parents' words were reassuring. However, that was not the end of it. Every day, my phone received harassing calls and a barrage of emails. When I checked her messages during my break at work, I saw a list of comments like, "Because of you, Mikey doesn't come back to his hometown. Mikey is mine. He should always be at home with me. You're not fit to be Mikey's wife. Persuade Mikey to come back." I was seriously considering blocking her number. But then I was overwhelmed by the fear that she might just show up at my door if I did. Around that time, I often felt sick. So, I just let the calls go to voicemail and ignored the texts. Then, I found out I was pregnant. With the persistent nausea, it made sense. When I informed both my parents and Michael's parents, both families immediately congratulated us. So, where's Lisa? She's out right now. Don't worry, I plan on keeping it from her as long as possible. Over the phone, I could hear the weariness in Michael's mother's voice. Thank you. How is Lisa doing there? Well, she's still not back. Every day after work, she's out somewhere in her car. How's the work at your husband's company? Michael's mother sighed deeply. It's a mess. Lisa doesn't even try to learn the basics of her job, and it seems she can't. I was shocked to hear that. And lately, she keeps saying this, that she was deeply hurt by what was said back then. She became depressed and doesn't want to go to work. Even when I tell her to see a doctor and get a note, she says she's too depressed to move. Although I send her off, I've heard she often skips work without notice. But she drives around a lot, right? Yes. She's unpredictable, but I'll make sure she doesn't come bothering you during your crucial time. Thanks to Michael's mother, I didn't face any surprise visits from Lisa while I was home. However, I continued to receive a barrage of emails from her. When are you gonna divorce? You should leave. You're just holding Mikey back. This child looks just like Mikey's first love, completely different from you. Looks like me, actually. The messages were repetitive and draining. I had another issue too. The morning sickness hit me early and hard. Michael was concerned and suggested I take an early leave from work and return to my parents' house. But isn't my parents' place in the same school district as yours? I fear Lisa might show up any day. Michael pondered over this and then called his father. He replied, "All right, since Lisa can't seem to hold a job anyways, I'll force her to join me on a long-term project." Is it far this time? It's nearby, but on an island. So, she can't return without my permission. It was reassuring to hear that. I expressed my gratitude to Michael's parents and decided to return to my parents' house. Upon visiting Michael's family home, both my father-in-law and Lisa were out, making the large house seem lonely. It's okay. We're relieved without her around. It seemed they were tired of their daily life with Lisa. However, close to my delivery date, a shocking event took place. Michelle! Why are you here? Lisa was banging loudly on my parents' door. At that time, my mother had gone out shopping. I checked all the windows to make sure they were locked. Everything was sealed tight. As long as I didn't go out, I'd be fine. But then, there was a loud crashing noise. Through the living room curtains, I could see a figure. It was Lisa. She was holding a metal baseball bat and stomped her way into the house, shoes on. There you are! I knew you were home, Michelle. I grabbed my phone and made my way to the front door. Lisa seemed to have predicted my move as she quickly closed in on me. I knew I was in danger and tried to rush upstairs. But at that moment, I felt a terrible blow to my back. Lisa had struck me right in the middle of my back with the baseball bat she held. Ouch! But I couldn't just stand there. I choked on the impact, feeling a rising sensation from my stomach, almost like nausea. Still clutching my belly, I began to climb the familiar stairs, trying to move as swiftly as I could.
Wait up!
Lisa shouted at the top of her lungs. No way I was waiting. My destination was the room on the second floor I'd used before going to college. I've been living on the first floor since I came back home, so I don't usually use it. But in there, I can lock the door from the inside. Lisa, groaning, followed with heavy steps, laboriously making her way up our winding staircase. She paused midway, catching her breath. I took this chance and darted into my room. I locked the door and dragged a table in front of it for extra security. Relief flooded me, and I slumped to the floor. That's when I noticed the carpet was damp.
My water broke!
I realized this and felt my body shivering uncontrollably. Oh no, not now. On the other side of the door, Lisa had caught up. She was pounding on the door with the bat. Each thud was heavy, a testament to her strength, and random thoughts raced through my head. Then,
Hey! What the hell?
I heard my mom's voice from outside the window. She's back, I thought, relieved. But I couldn't let her in. It's too dangerous. I called my mom on my cell.
Michelle! Are you okay? This shattered window!
Mom. Call 911. Get an ambulance and the police.
You mean the police, but an ambulance? Don't tell me.
Yes, that's right, my water broke. But I'm trapped upstairs. Hurry, but don't let Lisa see you. She's got a bat. I managed to say this before I fainted from the stress. When I came to, everything seemed to be over. I felt strange and my head was foggy.
Michelle, thank God you're awake.
A familiar voice. Michael was by my bed. What happened? Then it hit me. My stomach. Michelle, when they brought you in, things were looking dire. They had to perform an emergency C-section.
My baby? Where's my baby?
He's fine. A healthy baby boy. Thank you. We'll go see him together later. I took a deep breath of relief. And?
Ouch!
You can't do that. The doctor said you have a pretty bad fracture. I shivered. Was it when Lisa hit me? Did the bat strike my ribs?
Thank God it wasn't the baby.
I truly felt that from the bottom of my heart. Michael then apologized. I'm sorry. Huh? Why are you apologizing? That baseball bat Lisa brought over was in my room. Oh, I remembered. It was the bat Michael had once used for the baseball team he had to quit midway. I shouldn't have left it where she could find it. It's not your fault. If she hadn't found your bat, she probably would have taken Dad's golf club. That's when it hit me. What happened to Lisa? Well, she was caught red-handed breaking the windows of your family home. I thought Lisa was supposed to be on a work trip to the island. It seems she overheard a phone conversation between my father and me. About my pregnancy? Yeah. She must have figured out the timing of when she was brought to the island for work and lost her cool. We'll need to cool things down for a while. I felt relieved after hearing that. The next day after we were discharged from the hospital, my son, Alex, was as lively as ever, and he was now breastfeeding. I was gently stroking Alex's back when my smartphone rang. It was Michelle. I thought about ignoring it, but the call continued longer than I expected. However, after the 40th ring, I decided to answer, "Hello?"
Finally. Why did you take so long? How long did you plan to make me wait?
Another noise overlapped with her voice.
Stop that! Ugh, it's so loud!
Hey, Lisa. Do you have a baby with you? What I heard next was indeed the voice of a baby.
That's right. I took your son. But he's so noisy, crying nonstop.
I was confused. Why would there be a baby there?
Ugh. I thought I'd take him home and raise him my way, but he's so loud.
I quickly reached for the home phone. Hello, is this Michael's mom?
Why, what's up? Is Alex okay?
Yes, but...
Isn't that Alex crying?
Lisa was still making a racket in the background. It seems my mother-in-law heard the noise. Whispering, I asked, "Do you know where Lisa is right now?"
Huh? She's been quiet since the police handed her over.
She just called, and it sounds like she has a baby with her. My mother-in-law gasped in shock. There were some noises. Probably her checking if Lisa's car was around. I put the home phone near my smartphone.
You checked the hospital to see if your son was there, didn't ya? Tough luck, he's right here with me. Ugh, so darn loud. Oh, I got an idea.
Lisa, what have you been saying all this time? With a pleased look as if she had come up with something, I asked her with a sinking feeling.
I'm gonna leave your baby out in the mountains.
But Alex is here with me, breastfeeding.
What?
The next moment, a scream echoed from the other end.
My Alex.
I gently poked Alex's cheek. He let out a cheerful laugh. Lisa must have heard that.
Wait, then whose baby do I have here?
What don't you get?
Wasn't your son still in the hospital?
My son and I have been discharged and are at home. There was a loud thud followed by the sound of a baby crying even louder and Lisa screaming. She must have realized she kidnapped someone else's baby. I grabbed the home phone. Did you hear that? Something serious has happened.
Yes. I'm gonna call the hospital right now. You stay put.
The call ended. What a reliable woman. Indeed, I was not in a position to move right now. Given the constant need for breastfeeding, I couldn't leave my son's side. For the time being, I decided to focus all my energy on soothing my son, who started crying due to the noise coming from the other side of the smartphone. Later, I was informed that Lisa's car was found parked by the seaside road. Lisa was found dazed inside the car. The baby placed in the car seat in the back was safely retrieved. He was mildly dehydrated and was sternly reprimanded by the paramedics. Needless to say, his parents were furious with Lisa. This wasn't just a family squabble like breaking a window. It was a kidnapping involving someone else's child. The parents of the kidnapped baby were mildly dehydrated and were furious, saying,
"Our child was almost killed. We won't let this slide."
They clearly showed an attitude of not forgiving Lisa tomorrow. My father-in-law, who rushed back in a hurry, reportedly told the police.
There's no handling this at home anymore. I thought I was keeping an eye on things to make sure Michelle and others weren't inconvenienced, but this is the last straw. I'm cutting ties with you for good.
Lisa, the one being told this, seemed initially clueless about what he was talking about. Then, the moment she understood, she reportedly let out a loud scream. But why someone else's child? The police gave the answer to the in-laws. Firstly, Lisa had been quiet at the in-laws' house for a while. But it seems that was to plot revenge against me for being detained over the matter of breaking the glass at her family home. She learned about my upcoming discharge from overhearing a conversation between her parents and planned to kidnap my son before that. But Lisa missed the exact discharge date. My release from the hospital had been brought forward. Both my son and I were in good enough health to be discharged, and suddenly, there was a need for our bed. I gladly agreed to the early release. Lisa came to the hospital after I had already been discharged. She apparently sneaked into a patient room where another mother and child with the same last name as ours were staying and took the child when she sensed I wasn't there. Apparently, with her large build, wearing a sling carrying a baby, she just looked like any other patient being discharged. The bassinet was one of the items that my mother-in-law had hurriedly bought in preparation for my baby, including a crib and other things. She quickly sneaked into the house and, while looking for her car keys, spotted it and thought it was just perfect to take. The baby's mother, who happened to be in the bathroom, and the hospital were in an uproar. The situation became clear thanks to a call from my mother-in-law, and both the police and ambulances were dispatched. The police also came to our house, checked the call history on my smartphone, and said they were able to pinpoint Lisa's location. So, as a result, Lisa is gonna be in jail for a while. Deservedly so. She's gonna face a criminal trial, and lawyers keep coming, asking for testimonies that would be in her favor, but the in-laws firmly declined and said they won't support or help her in any way. My smartphone finally went silent. We sighed in relief, thinking that peaceful days are finally upon us. At this rate, the day when Michael will return to take over the family home and we all live happily together seems close.
I'm totally loving this room. Hey, can we rearrange the living room? Of course. This is your castle now, Michelle.
The eldest son and his wife are quite giddy in their high-rise condo, overlooking lush green hills and a bustling city. It might seem like a delightful scene, but it's the exact opposite. That's because this is the house where I, the younger sister, live with my parents. Don't go rearranging things without asking.
You still planning on living here, Meg? 40 years old and still a leech? Jobless loser, get out.
I looked to my father for support, expecting him to scold my eldest brother and his wife. But instead,
man, I'd love to live with a young wife too.
In that moment, something snapped inside me. I was done. Done with my arrogant brother, his annoying wife, and even my dad who was head over heels for her.
All right then, take good care of Mom and Dad.
So you're finally moving out, huh? Don't want to see your depressing face anymore, leave today. My brother and his wife seem pleased, thinking they've succeeded in kicking out their loser older sister, while looking forward to their luxurious high-rise life. Little do they know what difficulties lie ahead. My name is Meg Roberts. I'm a 40-year-old single woman. I live with my aging parents, helping with household chores and taking care of my dad. I do mostly remote work, except for the occasional business trip. I've long been troubled by my difficult father and brother. My dad has always been a philanderer, spending most of the money on himself, so we've always struggled. And because of that stress, my brother, Alan, has been abusive towards me since childhood, always making me cry. My misfortunes continued into adulthood. I entered the workforce around the same time my dad got injured and couldn't work anymore. Bad things happen in threes, and just around then, Alan stole our savings and vanished. My already frail mom had to work multiple part-time jobs while taking care of Dad, so I stepped up to help. Nights when I couldn't make it home from work, I'd stay overnight at the office, and then rush home to assist in caregiving. That's how my grueling 20s went by. I often thought about running away, but if I did, my kind-hearted, struggling mom would be left alone to deal with it all. As much as I hated my dad, I couldn't leave my mom all alone. In my mid-30s, my income finally started to stabilize, giving me some financial and emotional breathing room. About a year ago, during a business trip to Idaho, I stumbled upon a wonderful new high-rise. It was a modest 12-story building, but well located near the station and a supermarket, with a senior day care center and senior salon on the first floor. The building had excellent amenities like a gym and a spa. It was an ideal place to live for the long term. The view was also great, and for $500,000, you could get an apartment on one of the higher floors with a stunning view of the natural landscape. At the time, our old single-story house back in the New York metropolitan area was falling apart due to neglect over the years. I suggested moving to my mom, and she readily agreed. My dad was initially against it, but when he found out the high-rise was near a famous tourist attraction, he changed his mind. Probably just wanted to brag to his friends. We took the plunge and moved, and our new life started off well. We signed up for day services, became acquainted with the neighbors, and even participated in local festivals. The busy yet fulfilling year went by quickly. My dad goes to the senior day care center on the first floor 3 times a week. It's a facility that frequently organizes recreational activities, and the staff take him to hot springs and tourist spots. He keeps sending bragging postcards to relatives and acquaintances. It's a bit annoying that he's spreading the word as if he bought the high-rise condo with his own money, but since it doesn't cause any real harm, I let it be. My mom is making new friends at a senior salon and participating in community events and volunteering, which seems to be fun for her. It was also an ideal environment for me to work, and it seemed like I had finally achieved a calm and ideal life. However, the peace that had finally come to me was about to be shattered again. Alan suddenly appeared at the entrance of the high-rise condo. With Michelle, the woman he had an affair with and stole from her husband. That day, the ominous sound of the intercom echoed. When I saw the figure on the intercom camera, my heart froze.
Hey, I heard from a friend that you moved. Dad, that's amazing. Where did you get the money to buy such an apartment?
It was Alan, my older brother, who had been out of touch no matter how many times I tried to contact him. Alan, with the top 2 buttons of his Aloha shirt undone, sunglasses on, and speaking in a thuggish tone. I asked him coldly what he wanted. "What do you want?" "Oh, it's you, Meg.
I heard from a buddy that you quit your job years ago and hardly ever leave the house now, huh?
Being an old unemployed loser, that's pathetic." I still couldn't forgive this brother of mine. Because of this man, my mother and I had a tough time. However, if Alan had shown any signs of remorse, I would have been able to let bygones be bygones and treat him kindly. Instead, Alan mocked me, whom he should have troubled. I became even more resolute. "If you have no business here, please leave."
What? I came all the way here to introduce you to my wife. Open up.
Sure enough, there was a woman standing next to Alan. Honestly, I had a bad feeling about it, so I was reluctant. However, my mother said, "I don't know when we'll see him next, so I want to meet her," so I reluctantly unlocked the entrance. To my mother, he must still be her beloved son, no matter what. Alan, who barged into the room, sat down heavily on the sofa as if he had forgotten about the money he had embezzled when he was young.
"When did you get married?"
"Today." When Alan embraced his wife, Michelle, she boldly intertwined her arms. In front of her husband's family for the first time, doesn't she feel embarrassed or think she should be polite? But there was something more concerning. "Michelle, you've only been divorced for 6 months?" "Yeah." I took her away from her boring ex-husband, who only had being serious going for him.
Alan fought against the company to steal me away and escape. It was so cool.
Michelle, who said she was 30 years old, had a face appropriate for her age, but her hairstyle and fashion were like a college student's. Moreover, she moved her body excessively and spoke in a high-pitched voice. I felt a strong aversion towards the two of them as they openly and glamorously talked about the fact that Alan lost his job due to the affair, without even trying to hide or downplay it. However, my father, who was there, was leering at Michelle with a lecherous gaze.
"Michelle doesn't look 30 at all. She looks so youthful, almost like she's still in her teens, doesn't she?"
Ah, I'm so happy to hear that. Hearing Michelle's flirtatious voice, a cold wind blew through my heart. My mother was also stiffening her expression next to me. "This high-rise condo is very nice, but, Mr. Roberts, did you take on a loan at your age?" My father answered Michelle's intrusive question with pride. "I paid in full, so I only have to pay $100 for the management fee each month."
"So financially stable."
I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted them to leave as soon as possible, so I asked Alan, "When do you plan to go home?" "It's already evening, so we're staying here tonight."
"What? It's a bit of a problem if you tell me suddenly. Didn't you book a hotel or something?"
"I came back to my parents' house for a night." "What's the problem?" "But we only have one spare bed." Then, Michelle blushed and wiggled as she said, "I'm fine sharing a bed with Alan. Actually, I prefer that." Feeling nauseous, I took out my smartphone and immediately booked a nearby hotel. "Please leave now." Alan was reluctant and grumbling, but my mother quickly handed him some cash.
Stay at a hotel with this. Don't bother Meg.
Then, Alan left satisfied, taking Michelle with him.
Meg, I made you feel bad because I said I wanted to see Alan. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's not your fault, Mom. It's only natural for a parent to want to see their child after not hearing from them for years. When I remembered the faces of Alan and Michelle, who cleverly manipulated my mother's kind-heartedness to get money from her, I felt so frustrated that I couldn't help it. That day, I fell asleep at some point while working at the living room desk until late at night.
Please stop, Alan. Leave.
The next morning, I woke up with a start when I heard my mother's almost tearful shout from my room. I took off the blanket that my mother must have put on me and rushed to my room, only to be stunned by the scene before me. The room was ransacked, and things were scattered all over the floor. Alan and Michelle were throwing my clothes and daily necessities into a suitcase, one after the other.
What are you doing?
As I felt the blood drain from my face, Alan smirked and said,
You don't have a room anymore.
I see you have a lot of expensive clothes. I'll take some, okay?
Stop it. Enough is enough.
According to my mother, my father let Alan and Michelle into the room without asking them first thing in the morning. After Alan and Michelle closed their packed suitcases, they carried them to the living room and went out.
I really like this living room. Can I redecorate it to Michelle's taste? I want to line up all volumes of That Love Is the Wind of Early Spring here.
It's a comic book that you love to read. Of course. This is your castle, after all. It would be a problem if you redecorated it without permission. Then Alan, trying not to burst into laughter, said,
You still planning on living here? You're 40 and still want to leech off us? Unemployed losers should get out.
He really intends to kick me out. I knew Alan was a terrible person, but I never imagined he could be this bad.
It's embarrassing as a human being to act like your father-in-law's condo is yours.
What are both of you talking about? Meg is. Alan brushed off my mother, who was trying to defend me.
Can you be quiet, Mom? You're the one who raised a 40-year-old woman still living with her parent.
It was bad enough that he was mocking me, but to hurl such abusive language at my mother was unacceptable. I was trembling with anger but swallowed it down. There would be no point in saying anything to such a couple. They had been looking down on me from the start. I looked at my father for help. His wife and daughter had been insulted to this extent. Surely, he would scold Alan, wouldn't he? However, I kinda want to live with a young wife too. My father said such a carefree thing. At that moment, the tension in my heart snapped. I was fed up with my arrogant eldest son, his silly wife, and my father who was smitten with his daughter-in-law.
Well, take care of yourselves then. Finally decided to leave, huh? I don't want to see your gloomy face, so leave today.
This couple seemed to be basking in the joy of having driven out his parasite younger sister, who was leeching off their parents. They seemed to be looking forward to a glamorous life in a luxurious high-rise condo, without even dreaming of the hardships that awaited them. Having been kicked out with just one suitcase, I went to the nearest local city and rented a monthly apartment. I contacted my mother and had her send the rest of my belongings there. When I called to thank her for the delivery, my mother was crying, saying she felt pathetic.
Meg, you're the most filial child. And yet, your father and Alan are too cruel. But the most pathetic one is me, who couldn't stop them.
Currently, unemployed Alan and Michelle are leisurely job hunting while enjoying their dream life in the high-rise condo. Michelle even says things like, since the rent is covered, I can get by with less income, so it's okay for me to be a housewife, right?
It's not your fault, Mom. Besides, they will be the ones to regret it in the end. Would you be willing to help me with what I'm going to do from now on?
After listening carefully to the plan I laid out, my mother said this. If that happens, Alan and Michelle and your dad will be in a lot of trouble. But I think those three deserve it. I will cooperate. Thank you, Mom. I'll send some documents over. Make sure to get a signature from Alan at the right time and send it back. Understood. About a month later, Alan, who had been silent until then, suddenly contacted.
Hey, a rent demand letter came. What does it mean to pay $1,000 in rent? When I questioned Dad, he said you bought the house.
Were you deceiving me? Wasn't there no mortgage?
I wasn't the one deceiving, it was Dad, right? As you already know, that room is in my name, and since I paid in full, I don't have a mortgage.
Then why do I have to pay the rent? I sighed. Alan had accused me of leeching off our parents. But who was really trying to leech off someone else? There's no way he could live in the house of the sister he forcibly kicked out for free. It seemed like a massive boomerang.
You're living there now, right? Since you're borrowing it from me, it's only natural to pay rent. You did agree to it, right? Huh? I don't remember agreeing to anything.
Oh, that's strange. I have the original lease agreement here. It has your signature on it. There should be documents at your place that you can check too. Michelle and I turned the document holder upside down, and we could hear Alan freaking out over the phone.
What is this? I really did sign it. When did I sign this? I don't know. Oh, I remember now, Mom gave it to me to sign.
Huh? So you signed it without checking? Are you an idiot?
Shut up, you were there too, right? It was when we were getting ready to go shopping. Why didn't you stop me? You're the worst. Are you trying to blame me?
I listened to Alan and Michelle arguing over the phone with a sense of satisfaction. It wasn't a bad feeling.
Where's Mom? Did she become Meg's minion? It's useless. She's with me now. She won't be back for a while. What? Hey, Meg, where are you now?
Who knows? I don't have an obligation to tell you, do I? Speaking of obligations, you have an obligation to pay the rent, don't you? Alan stamped his feet in frustration.
Damn it! I can't afford to pay $1,000 a month.
I could hear the sound of Alan angrily smashing something like a bottle. If you break the floor or walls, I'll charge you for the repairs.
You devil!
Just then, Michelle, who had left earlier, came running back.
I found Dad's passbook while rummaging through the drawers. We should be able to manage with this, huh? 23 cents? Not even $2,300? Is there a digit missing?
The two of them were in such a panic that it seemed like a comedy, and I couldn't help but hold back my laughter.
There's no way Dad has any savings. The moment Dad couldn't work anymore, you took everything and ran away, remember? Thanks to that, Mom and I had a really hard time.
Michelle shouted at Alan, who was grumbling in frustration.
What do you mean? Michelle, I haven't heard anything about this. Ah, shut up, bringing up the past. It's easy for the thief to forget, but the victim never forgets the pain.
It's convenient, isn't it?
Okay, then please take care of Dad's senior daycare payments too.
At my words, Alan was silent for a few seconds, as if he didn't understand what I was saying.
Wait, what did you just say? The daycare payment. It used to be automatically deducted from my account, but I stopped it. So from now on, you'll have to take care of it.
Isn't the daycare fee included in the condominium maintenance fee?
There's no way that's the case. How naive are you? You should face reality. Bye.
I hung up the phone, exasperated. After that, Alan kept calling persistently, so I set my phone to reject his calls, and it finally became quiet. Later, Alan and Michelle, unable to afford the $1,000 monthly rent, had to leave the condominium. As soon as they found out he had no money, Dad was quickly abandoned and tried to rely on Mom, but he didn't know where she was, and her cell phone number had changed. He had no choice but to rely on me.
Please apologize properly for everything you've done so far. and correct all the lies you've been bragging about to your relatives in postcards. Write that you can live a good life in the condo thanks to your daughter, me. Then, I'll let you stay in the condo again.
My father seemed as if his pride had been shattered to pieces, and he became very quiet. However, at the end of the day, I think it was my father who underestimated me too much. This incident must have been a good lesson for him. When I returned to my condo and took a breather, the ominous chime rang again. When I checked through the video intercom, there stood Michelle, unbelievably.
Such a jerk, that man.
I couldn't believe my ears when she cursed, as if she couldn't have been openly flirting and calling him Alan just a while ago.
That guy cheated on me right after leaving the condo.
From what I gathered from Michelle's story, after leaving the condo, Alan and Michelle moved to the city, saying that condo was too rural. From now on, we will live a sophisticated city life. It was a classic case of sour grapes. But Alan, who was dismissed for misconduct, was unlikely to find a good job. Alan was apparently picky about his jobs and remained unemployed, eventually getting hooked on playing slots. They lived in a narrow, old apartment, and Michelle started supporting Alan by working full-time as a temporary staff. However, Michelle gradually became dissatisfied with Alan, who did not do household chores and was obsessed with slots, and they started having marital quarrels every night. So, he cheated. It's karma, isn't it? What's karma? I don't understand what you're saying. I started to feel a bit sorry for Michelle. You're pretty stupid and terrible too, but my brother is even worse. What a pity. But, I regretted sympathizing with her even for a moment after hearing her next words.
So, you have money, right? Pay the alimony instead. After all, it's your fault for kicking us out.
The conversation was so abrupt that I didn't understand what she was saying at first. As I gradually absorbed the situation, I was dumbfounded and firmly refused. There is no reason for me to take on the alimony, and if we go back to the root cause, you guys were the ones illegally occupying my house. When Michelle started yelling again, a serious-looking man in a suit and glasses appeared behind her and looked into the intercom camera. Excuse me, I came to pick up the latest manuscript of that win. Michelle was startled and glared at the man. Who are you? Oh, I'm sorry for not introducing myself. I am Jeff, the editor in charge of Mississippi Roberts. Today, I came to pick up the manuscript of the manga that Love is the Wind of Early Spring. After a brief pause, Michelle started screaming hysterically.
What do you mean? Why is the editor of Michelle's Bible, That Wind, coming to this woman's house to pick up the manuscript? Huh? Don't tell me, huh?
It is exactly what you are thinking. I revealed the truth while finding the situation amusing inside. The author of the shoujo manga That Love is the Wind of Early Spring, abbreviated as That Wind, which you have collected all volumes of, is me. It took a long time to gain recognition, but thanks to this work, which I started serializing about 5 years ago, becoming a big hit, I became known as a late-blooming manga artist. And finally, I was able to earn enough money to buy the condo. So, That Wind is a very important work for me. Michelle was speechless at first, then started to tremble gradually.
So, some of the money I was happily spending to buy the latest volumes flowed to you as royalties. And all those heart-throbbing scenes were drawn by you, and I was being manipulated.
It was understandable that Michelle was confused, as the author of the comic book she revered as a Bible was the sister of the man she was currently hating. Michelle seemed to be filled with anger and shame, screamed "Gah!" and ran outside. And she never came back again. Later, I heard that Michelle and Alan got divorced. It seems that the person Alan had an affair with dumped him as soon as she found out he was an unemployed gambling addict. Now, I heard through the grapevine that Alan is making ends meet by working a live-in job. It seems to be a manual labor job that he used to be picky about and avoid. Since Alan has not contacted me, I do not intend to contact him either. If he contacts me, it must be for some ulterior motive, so I hope things stay this way for the time being. My parents and I returned to our former lives. The only slight difference might be that my father doesn't complain as much as he used to. He used to grumble about trivial things, but now it seems he feels inferior to me. By the way, the other day, my editor, Jeff, brought me the results of a reader survey for That Wind.
It seems that it won the first place in popularity among the serialized comic books in the magazine.
I decided to continue drawing the comic book for my readers and for myself. In this beautiful nature visible from the condo.
Don't you dare call the police. We are going to raise this child ourselves.
Huh? I was shocked by what Jack said, and felt uneasy because something seemed off about him. I pretended to agree with Jack's idea for the time being, but I was thinking about something else. And then, I took a certain action. My name is Lily Sullivan. I used to be a model, but now I am a full-time housewife. I am married and live with my husband, Jack. By the way, we do not have any children.
Thank you very much.
Jack waved goodbye to the moving company's worker. The building surrounding us was unmistakably an apartment complex. Jack gave me a big smile and said,
"From today, this apartment is our new home, Lily. The movers have brought our stuff, so let's start unpacking." "Yes, sure."
Jack went into the room we would be living in with great enthusiasm. Our apartment is on the first floor and has a small garden. Moreover, the interior of the apartments these days are nicely designed, and it feels pretty good. Also, the rent is cheap, and there are supermarkets, convenience stores, and parks nearby. By the way, one of my hobbies is walking. Walking allows me to feel the changing seasons, it's a form of exercise, and it helps me clear my mind. That's why I like walking. Besides, the park near the apartment is very spacious, making it an ideal environment for walking. To be honest, there's nothing to complain about.
I'm glad we moved here.
There is a reason why Jack and I moved to this apartment. We believe that we can't rely on pension in the future, so we decided to move here to save money for our old age. We also plan to live here when we get old, so we intentionally chose a first-floor apartment. Climbing stairs would be difficult when we get old, and I wanted to have an organic vegetable garden, so this first-floor apartment with a garden was very beneficial for us. However, the delay in our moving was due to my work. To make a long story short, I quit modeling in my 40s. I was still needed in the industry, but I thought there was no point in continuing as a model since I was already in my 40s, so I decided to quit. However, it took some time to quit, which delayed our move. For the record, I have been a model for fashion magazines since my teens and had a decent career. However, unlike recent models, I did not appear in dramas or variety shows, and even when my manager begged me, I refused. Somehow, I felt that it was wrong for a model to act like an actress or a celebrity. In other words, I had a strong desire to only do modeling work. Also, I was a former gang member during my school days, and I was worried that if I appeared on TV, my past would be exposed. I was highly valued by brands that specialized in innocent or conservative fashion, so if it was revealed that I was a former gang member, there was a risk that I would lose my job. In the entertainment industry, the image that the public has of you is very important. Therefore, I had developed a habit of hiding my past as a former gang member. Moreover, Jack does not know that I was a former gang member. He probably misunderstands and thinks of me as a pure and innocent woman. Of course, the success of making him misunderstand was due to my relentless effort. I always behaved and dressed like a lady, wore light makeup, and rarely went without makeup. All of this was to avoid disappointing Jack, and because I couldn't fulfill his wish, these actions were my way of making amends to him. To put it simply, I couldn't have children. Jack wanted a child with me, but I was worried that getting pregnant would create a gap in my work, and my body would no longer be usable as a model, so I did not have a child. Jack respected my decision, but the fact that I was making him endure it did not change. Honestly, it's a miracle he hasn't divorced me. I was reminiscing about the past and started to feel guilty towards Jack, so I took the trash that he was about to take out.
I'll take out the trash. You must be tired from moving, so take it easy. Wait.
I heard Jack calling after me, but I ran out energetically, reached the garbage disposal area, and threw away the trash. But near that garbage disposal area, a moving company's truck was parked.
Has someone moved in?
When I glanced at the moving truck, a beautiful woman got out of the seat. She seemed to be in her 20s. I was obviously staring at her, and our eyes met. And then she ran over to me.
Hi, I'm Kate Grubb. I just moved in today. Are you a neighbor? Yes. I live on the first floor over there. Well, I also just moved in today. Really? What a coincidence. I also live on the first floor, but in a different building.
She said that, pointed to her room, and smiled. Shortly after, Jack came running over to me.
Geez, you startled me by running out suddenly. Oh. Who is this? This is Kate Grubb. She just moved in today like us. I'm Kate Grubb. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Oh, can I help you with your move? Really? Thank you.
So, Jack helped Kate with her move, along with the moving company staff. I decided to buy some convenience store sweets as a token of appreciation for Kate and Jack and headed to a nearby convenience store. Then, I unexpectedly ran into my classmate from my student days, Natalie, at the convenience store.
Is that you, Lily? Natalie. It's been a while.
It was the first time I'd seen Natalie since our coming-of-age ceremony. Both of us had gotten older, and our fashion had changed, but we still resembled our past selves. And when I looked closely, I saw that Natalie's basket was filled with whiskey, snacks, and gum syrup. Also, her makeup and fashion were quite flashy.
Natalie, what are you doing for work now? I run a bar. It's called Bar Natalie, nearby. Come and visit.
She said that and gave me a business card with the shop's name on it. Happy about the unexpected reunion with my classmate, I ended up buying a little too many convenience store sweets. After that, I had a housewarming celebration with Jack and Kate in Kate's room, eating convenience store sweets together. At that time, I thought everything was going well. A few weeks after moving, one day Jack said to me,
"Maybe you should put on heavier makeup?" Why? Well, there's a karaoke place called Bar Natalie nearby, and the bartender there, Natalie, wears heavy but beautiful makeup. So, I thought maybe you should try heavier makeup too.
I was astonished that Jack suddenly commented on my makeup. I was quite annoyed by what Jack had said.
Bars are dimly lit, so even if you wear heavy makeup, you still look beautiful. But I don't think it would look good in natural light. Oh, is that so? Sorry, forget what I just said. You're beautiful as you are, so stay that way.
Saying that, Jack, perhaps feeling awkward, hurriedly went into his room. I was quite irritated by Jack's comment. The reason I wore light makeup was precisely because Jack liked women with a neat and tidy appearance. If I had worn heavy makeup like Natalie when we first met, Jack probably wouldn't have given me a second glance. Moreover, one of the reasons I wear light makeup is to prevent people from finding out that I was a former gang member. So, I am making meticulous efforts every day to not shatter Jack's dream, but not only does he not notice my efforts, he even suggested I should wear heavier makeup, which completely crushed my pride and, honestly, irritated me. The next day, I went to a certain place by taxi. That place was a monthly rental storage unit. In fact, this storage unit contains my high school album. I go to all this trouble to ensure that Jack doesn't find out about my past, specifically that I was a former gang member. But sometimes, I want to look at the album, so I go to the storage unit. However, the lock on the storage unit was broken, and the album that was inside was gone. It must have been stolen by someone. I was shocked and stood there frozen for a while. When I got home and told Natalie about it, she said something shocking. But since Natalie and I were friends and considering the situation at the time, I thought it wouldn't be a big deal, so I kept quiet about it. About a year later, I was awakened by the sound of a baby crying. It was late at night, and it was dark outside, but I could definitely hear a baby crying from behind the door. When I opened the door, there was a baby left abandoned. I immediately took the baby in and called Jack, who was on a business trip, to inform him about the baby. The next day, Jack came home.
Look, there was even a note saying, "Please take care of this child."
I showed Jack the baby and the note. Then Jack said something unbelievable.
"We must not call the police. We will raise this child." What?
I was flabbergasted by Jack's statement and felt an uneasy premonition because Jack was acting strangely. I pretended to agree with Jack's idea for the time being, but I was thinking about something else. Then I took action. The day after Jack came back, I gathered information about the baby while holding it in my arms to somehow calm the anxiety in my chest. I expected it would take some time to figure out who and where this baby came from, but things became clear surprisingly quickly. I was able to obtain reliable information about the baby, and my anxiety was halved. However, at the same time as I obtained the information, my body was covered with an immense feeling of anger. The next day, Jack, the baby, and I were at home. Jack was at home because he had the day off from work. I was holding the baby as usual. But suddenly, the baby started crying loudly, and while I was surprised, I tried to soothe it. While I was holding the baby and trying to soothe it with all my might, Jack kept staring at us. Honestly, it's quite uncomfortable to feel someone's gaze so intensely. Even when I showed a slightly displeased expression by lowering the corners of my mouth, Jack did not take his eyes off me and the baby. What kind of benefit is there in continuing to stare at us like that? Finally, I reached my limit of irritation with Jack, who continued to stare at us in silence, and I asked him, "Hey, why have you been staring at me and the baby for so long?" Then Jack smiled and said,
"Well, I was just thinking that we really look like a family." What?
I did not expect Jack to say something like that, so I inadvertently asked him again.
"I mean, we really look like a family, don't we? You have gotten used to holding the baby, and you've gotten better at soothing it. I think we've reached a level where it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say we're a family."
It's no good. When Jack talks about the family, it just irritates me listening to him. If you ask me, I am in no way related to this baby, and I don't want him to arbitrarily make us a family in his imagination. Besides, that day, when the baby was left at the front door, I was thinking of reporting it to the police, but Jack not only denied that thought, but also left me entirely in charge of taking care of the baby. So, if the baby starts crying, I am the one who has to act first. Because Jack doesn't feel like moving for the baby, using the excuse that he is tired from work. Excuses don't work when you're an adult. In fact, as an adult, you have to think creatively and take action. Jack is the one who initially wanted to raise the baby, so he should be actively participating in childcare. But he can't do that, and even today, he just keeps staring at me soothing the baby. And in the end, he even said, "It's like we're a family," and he is such a ridiculous person who rubs people the wrong way. I wish he would consider my feelings a little and act appropriately. Despite being in sales, why is Jack so bad at reading the situation? And while I was quietly getting irritated, Jack said this.
"You know, I really wanted a kid. So right now, I feel really fulfilled. Happiness might just be something like this."
I was quite pissed off at Jack's remark, and I couldn't hold back my anger any longer. "The only reason you feel happy is because I've been taking care of the baby for you. This man is just too stupid. Why have I been working so hard for this man, trying to keep our marriage going?" My heart was full of regret. Fearing that I would lash out at Jack, I said this.
"I just remembered something I need to do, so I'm gonna go. The baby seems to have stopped crying, so take care." "Eh? Wait, where are you going?"
I handed the baby to Jack and dashed outside. And then I headed for Kate's room. When I rang the doorbell, Kate came out.
"Oh. Isn't it Lily? What's the matter? I was just wondering how you've been lately. And I wanted to talk to you, Kate. I was thinking the same thing. It's a bit awkward to talk standing up, so please come in." "Thank you, Kate."
And so, I entered Kate's house. Honestly, it had been quite a while since I had seen or talked to Kate.
It's been a while since we've met, hasn't it? Half a year? Yes, it has. I rang the doorbell a few times and you didn't answer, so I was wondering how you were doing. I had actually gone back to my parents' house. Oh, really? Why? Why do you ask? It's none of your business. I'll guess. You got pregnant, right?
When I said that, Kate fell silent, as if I had hit the nail on the head.
But you couldn't expect any support from your parents, so you reluctantly came home and then you went to my husband, the father of the child, for help, right? How do you know all that? Well, to put it simply, my husband, when he drinks, tends to spill the beans about everything at the drinking table. My friend, Natalie, happened to be at that drinking table and heard Jack talking about you. Apparently, Jack spilled everything about you that time. So Natalie told me everything. Don't underestimate the women's network. By the way, your stomach has gotten a lot smaller. Where did the baby go? Why do you ask such a mean question when you already know? You are the mean one, leaving your baby at my doorstep where I live with my children. It's not something a human should do. Thanks to you, I now have to raise your baby with Jack. Well, Jack leaves all the childcare to me and acts annoyingly paternal. It's a lie. Jack is not that kind of person. You are being deceived. Well, Jack has a good public face, and he helped you move, so it's no wonder you are mistaken. But the actual Jack is not a great person. Are you subtly bragging to me? Are you trying to say that you are happy to raise my baby as a substitute and that you are married to Jack? Of course not. I want to stop raising your baby. The reason I came here today is to ask why you left the baby at my doorstep. Hey, we're friends, right? Well, if you don't tell me, I'll report you to the police. What will you do?
When I said that, Kate glared at me and was silent for a while. But I stared back without losing, and Kate seemed to raise the white flag and started talking about the reason she abandoned the baby.
On the day Jack helped me move, we exchanged contact information. As we gradually communicated, I fell for Jack's personality, and before I knew it, we were in a relationship. Eventually, I became pregnant with Jack's baby, but he asked me to get an abortion. Moreover, he said he would not pay for the abortion. At that time, I was job hunting and had no savings. So, as a last resort, I went to my estranged parents' house and begged them for money, but it was no use. As time went by, I had no choice but to give birth to the baby. But I knew that just handing the baby over to an orphanage wouldn't relieve my resentment. Besides, I thought that if Jack saw the baby's face, he might change his mind and come to me. So, I left the baby at your doorstep. That's the whole story.
When Kate finished talking, she broke down in tears. But I showed no mercy to her.
So, basically, you're just an idiot who can't plan ahead. Honestly, I feel sorry for the baby being born into this mess. I can sort of understand why Jack doesn't want to remarry you. There's no happy future in marrying a clueless idiot. In that sense, Jack is smarter than you. But Jack is dumber than me. So, basically, you were just used by someone slightly smarter than an idiot. Really, it's a shame. From Jack's perspective, you're just a tool. A tool can't become a wife, you know. That's harsh. We won't know unless we ask Jack. I won't accept that he thinks of me as a tool. Oh, you really are stupid.
Just as Kate and I were having a heated exchange, the doorbell rang at the perfect time. When Kate opened the door, there was Jack holding a baby. I wondered what he wanted as I stared at Jack with cold eyes. But for some reason, Kate hugged Jack.
Jack! You came to pick me up with the baby. You must really love me, don't you? Huh? The one I love is Lily. I came here to pick up Lily. Don't get it twisted, you stupid woman.
Saying that, Jack pushed Kate away and headed towards me.
Lily, let's go home. It's pointless to deal with this woman. Indeed, Kate might be so incompetent as to leave a baby at someone's doorstep, but that action was prompted by feelings of wanting to get your attention, right? Well, there is no doubt that Kate is a hopeless thinker, but I also think that you are a hopeless person. Honestly, I don't even want to breathe the same air as you. So, in other words, I think you and Kate are a perfect match. The baby you are holding now has half of your and Kate's genes, right? So if you and Kate raise this baby, you can have a real family. It would be a huge loss to miss such a big opportunity, don't you think?
Hearing my words, Jack desperately spat out nasty words.
That's not it. I just lost my mind for a moment. I don't love Kate. The only one I love is Lily. Please believe me. Disgusting. There's no way I can believe that. You will never understand the humiliation and sadness I felt having to take care of the baby you and Kate created, even if it was just for a few days. And yet, you treat Kate like a tool, claim there's no love, but show affection towards the baby she gave birth to. You're the worst. What part of such a despicable man should I believe? Stop making a fool out of me.
After being berated by me, Jack, realizing he couldn't control me, vented his frustration with these words.
Shut up. You former gangster. I heard from Natalie that you were a delinquent in your school days, right? And what's with that light makeup? Trying to act like a pure, innocent model and deceive me, you're nothing but a scam artist. You tricked and made a fool out of me, didn't you? You're not one to talk.
Actually, Natalie accidentally mentioned my school days when Jack, unaware that he was my husband, came to the snack bar for karaoke. But since Jack was drinking at the time, Natalie and I thought he would be too drunk to remember. Apparently, Jack had a good memory. Really, what a troublesome man.
Yes, indeed, I hid from you that I used to be a gangster. But I had no choice. All the jobs that came my way were for being prim and proper, and back then, I wanted you to like me. It was a time when I had to pretend to be demure, so it couldn't be helped. You're just too lenient with yourself. Really, I'm so pitiable, being deceived by a woman like you.
The moment Jack said that, the intercom rang vigorously several times. I opened the door as if to say I wanted to see you quickly. And there stood Natalie.
I heard everything. You guys, the window was open so the conversation went straight outside. Well, it saved me the trouble of explaining, though.
I had already sent a request for help to Natalie by text before arriving at Kate's house. I thought she was a bit late, but it seemed that Natalie had been standing by in front of the door all along. How kind of Natalie.
Natalie! Thank you for coming. Who? This person? Natalie! You not only cheated and had a child, but you also stole Lily's album. You're the lowest scum. You should be grateful that a man of your level could date Lily. You idiot!
Natalie cut a satisfying rebuke, just like in her student days. It was a moment when my heart felt refreshed. However, Jack unexpectedly said this to Natalie and me.
Shut up! You gangsters! No matter how much you try to act like adults, in the end, both Lily and you are nothing but gangsters. Don't talk like you understand anything, you gangsters.
Natalie, quite pissed off by Jack's unexpected words, crushed an empty can on the table with one hand and said this to Jack.
I have a lot of juniors who are good at fighting. If I team up with them, I'm sure one day you'll be more miserably crushed than this empty can. If you don't want to make me angrier, apologize to Lily. Hey, and that woman you cheated with too.
Then, Kate and Jack, perhaps not wanting to suffer anymore, readily apologized to me. After that, it was decided that Jack and I would get divorced. I said this to Jack, who was looking down discontentedly.
Now that you're single again, why don't you remarry Kate and raise that baby together? You've always wanted your own child, haven't you? I don't want to. Who would want to live with such a stupid woman? I wanted to live with you, Lily, and I wanted to raise that baby with you.
Jack was just spewing out selfish words, like a child. And it seems that Jack had been suspicious of me going out somewhere from time to time and had been secretly following me. So, Jack found out that I was hiding an album in a warehouse and stole the album because he wanted to know what was inside. Really, what a guy. I felt like I would become useless if I stayed with someone like him, so I quickly gathered my things and left the apartment. When all was said and done, Jack wanted to be with someone as smart as me with a title like a model, and it seems like he only saw Kate as someone to hang out with. And, given Kate's financial situation, it was clear she couldn't afford to raise the baby, so the baby was placed in an orphanage. It's sad to think that, as always, the vulnerable and children are the ones caught up in the mess of adult affairs. As for me, I started living on my own after I finalized my divorce with Jack. But, as life goes on, living costs money. However, the only work experience I have is as a model, and there probably aren't many companies that'd want to hire someone my age. So after giving it a lot of thought, I decided to go back to modeling. But it wasn't like before, no magazine covers or fashion shows. Specifically, I was doing bridal modeling and catalog modeling. However, maybe because modeling is a small industry, the photographer who took my bridal photos turned out to be friends with a magazine editor I used to work with. Thanks to that photographer pulling some strings for me, I'm gonna start modeling for a magazine again next month. Lots will probably happen in the future, but I'm not gonna give up. I want to keep pushing forward. In a note written in my husband's handwriting, it said he'd be on a business trip for a month. Seeing it, I was certain. Our marriage was over. It was that night, alone in a room with no one around, lost in thought. What's happening now? In the dead of night while my husband was away, I suddenly heard the cry of a baby. I rushed to the front door and found a letter. And it read, "I can't raise him." To my astonishment, there was a baby inside a cardboard box along with the letter.
Why is there a baby here?
It was a situation I had only seen on TV shows. My mind raced, unsure of what to do, and the next thing I knew, I was calling my husband.
Don't bother me when I'm busy. You're getting in the way.
My husband snapped at me for calling. But when I told him about the baby, he responded with startling words.
We're gonna raise this child. Got it?
With that, he hung up. His words lingered in my mind. There was definitely something going on. Well, I've got my own suspicions. At this point, one or two more problems don't matter. I'll find out everything and drag you down. My name is Jessica. I'm a 40-year-old housewife. I used to work for a major corporation, but I resigned when I married my husband, Mike. I met Mike about 5 years ago. Back then, he came to the company I worked for as a salesman. He was cheerful and a bit of a joker. I wondered then if he was cut out for sales. But when it came to work, he spoke seriously and clearly, surprising all the coworkers. I still remember how he left such an impression on me. A month later, while taking a break on a park bench near the office, a man in a suit approached and asked, "Is this seat taken?" Feeling annoyed, I didn't look at the man's face and just said, "Sure," intending to leave the spot. But then the man hurriedly stopped me. "Hey there, Ms. Johnson. How've you been?" Wondering how he knew my last name, I looked at him. "Oh? Mr. Smith? Good to see you. Thanks for the other day." "Thank you." "Thanks to you, Mr. Johnson, everything at work went smoothly. I really appreciate it." Mike, who I hadn't seen in a while, was just as playful as before, chatting up a storm with me. I naturally talked to him about work and everyday life. From then on, whenever I took a break, Mike was always there beside me. Although it was just for a short time, I cherished the moments spent with Mike, and soon found myself wanting to be with him all the time. Turns out, Mike felt the same way. How about a real date? Not just a 1-hour break, but a genuine date. Yes. That was the turning point for us. We became a couple, and a year later, we got married. And this year, we celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary. Jessica, Thanks for being with me all these years. Same goes for you. Thanks for always cherishing me. Celebrating our wedding anniversary together. I was overwhelmed with emotion, feeling so fortunate to have married Mike, and tears welled up. Jessica, it's become a yearly tradition for you to cry, huh? Shush. They're happy tears, okay? Give me a break.
I get it.
This happiness will last forever. Back then, that's what I believed. But as our 5th anniversary approached, I realized that had been just an illusion. For the past 6 months, Mike's been coming home late. He used to always come home right on time, but now he's usually home after 8 p.m.
Honey, how much longer are these late nights gonna last?
It's been half a year.
This never used to happen. Doesn't it seem strange? Business hasn't been great. At this rate, our bonuses are gonna get cut. Everyone's working their tails off.
Under normal circumstances, I would have believed him, but something felt off to me. My husband's company, although considered a small to medium-sized business, is quite well known around here. Their revenues have been increasing year after year, and they're always hiring new employees. Can a company like that suddenly experience a drop in sales? Having employees work overtime for half a year because of tight sales is simply not normal. I don't want to doubt my husband's words, but there's this nagging feeling deep down. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna head out for a bit. Huh? You just got home. I'm just meeting someone I know, that's okay, right? Considering he's been working late recently, I figured it wouldn't hurt to let him go once in a while. Just don't be out too late, okay? You've got work tomorrow. Thanks. I'll be back soon. Mike quickly changed into his casual clothes and with a big grin, left to meet his friend. That night, Mike didn't return home until past midnight. Oh, sorry, did I wake you? You're okay? That's pretty late. We just got caught up chatting, and it got late. I see. I'm sleepy, so I'm gonna head to bed. Good night. The next morning, when I woke up, Mike, who usually sleeps beside me, was nowhere to be found. Rubbing my sleepy eyes and looking around, he was still missing. Checking my phone, it was just past 5 a.m., even before my alarm. Mike? I called out, but there was no answer from him. I wondered where he went and headed to the living room, only to find Mike sound asleep on the couch. Why are you sleeping here? I tried to wake him up to get him to bed, but Mike didn't budge. And then, something fell from his hand to my feet. Is that his phone? I picked up the dropped phone intending to place it on the table. That's when I noticed the image of a woman's back on the phone's screen. Who is this? A celebrity? I guess it's fine. I put my phone on the table. Can't get back to sleep now. Maybe I should take a walk. I left my husband sleeping on the couch and decided to go for a walk. Stepping outside, the warm sunlight and a refreshing breeze greeted me.
Ah, this feels so good.
Morning walks on a sunny day are the best. It's a great way to start the day. After about an hour, I came back home. When I entered the living room, I found my husband looking sternly at my phone. Good morning. Why the long face? Want something to drink? No thanks. Usually, he'd reply with a smile, but today he seemed off. Maybe he's just groggy from sleep? But then, his next words made me realize it was something different.
Hey, can you not talk to me so much in the morning?
Huh? It's just, you're kind of annoying. I was taken aback. He'd never spoken to me like that before. Without another word, he went to our bedroom, changed into his suit, and left for work without breakfast. Without our usual morning hug. While I was doing housework, puzzled by my husband's strange behavior this morning, my cell phone rang from an unknown caller. Normally, I wouldn't answer calls from unknown numbers, but for some reason, I picked up this time. Hello? Hi, is this Jessica? Yes, who's this?
It's been a while. It's Sarah. Sarah Lewis. Remember we worked together a while back?
Lewis. Sarah Lewis. Then it hit me. 12 years ago, right after graduating from college, I worked at a convenience store for a short time. Back then, Sarah Lewis, who was still in high school, worked there too. Why on earth was she calling me now? And how did she get my cell number? It's been ages, Sarah. I never expected a call from you. It's quite a surprise. I never thought I'd call you either, Jessica. If it weren't for that crazy coincidence, I wouldn't have. But I thought, why not give it a shot? She was always like this. She probably doesn't mean any harm, but there's always something about Sarah that gets under my skin. That's just so typical of her. So, what's this big coincidence? You're not gonna believe this. I work at the same company as Mike. Your husband, Mike. Really? When I heard from Mike that his wife's name was Jessica, I wondered if it was you. And it turned out I was right. When I told Mike we used to work together, he gave me your number. It was indeed a crazy coincidence that the girl I worked with back then was now working with my husband. But at the same time, I felt a bit betrayed that Mike gave her my number without asking me first. I'm glad you called, but aren't you working right now? Is it okay to be on the phone?
Obviously, it's not, but now that I've heard your voice, I should get back to work. Talk to you later. Bye.
She's still as lively as ever. I never thought I'd hear her voice again after 15 years. It made me a little nostalgic, thinking about the old times. It's been 15 years since then. And later that night. I'm home. Welcome back. You must be tired. The bath is ready, so you can hop in. Wait, what? From behind my husband, a woman suddenly appeared and greeted, "Good evening." A colleague from work?
It's me. Sarah.
Unbelievably, my husband had come home with Sarah, who had called earlier that day. Both of them held large shopping bags in their hands. Hold on a minute. I wasn't told you'd be coming over. When Sarah called earlier, she said she'd catch up later. You should have figured she'd come today. As a wife, you should know these things. I was slightly infuriated by my husband's irrational comment, but held my tongue since we had a guest. I wonder if they're that close, calling Sarah with such a friendly nickname? Hee hee. I caught a brief chuckle from her. What was that? While I was distracted, the two had moved into the living room. I let out a sigh and followed, only to find them laying out a bunch of alcohol and snacks from their bags on the table. What do you think you're doing?
We're gonna have some drinks here. Mike said we should drink at home, so I bought a bunch.
That's not enough, make us something. I wasn't expecting this. I only made dinner for the two of us. With that, Mike gave me a cold look and said, "Then go buy something now." What's with that attitude?
Excuse me? You have a problem when I'm the one feeding you?
His chilly gaze was now replaced with a commanding tone. This was nothing like the Mike I knew, and as I tried to hide my shock, she gave me a sly smile. Even in my own home, what is this overwhelming feeling of alienation? Unable to bear being there any longer, I immediately headed out to do some shopping.
What the hell?
Although worried someone might hear, I couldn't stop muttering to myself. This continued even as I shopped at the grocery store. This should be enough. An hour later, I returned to the apartment after finishing my shopping. Standing at the front door, I took a deep breath and opened it, only to find an eerie silence enveloping the place. Hello? There was no sound of their voices. I gently opened the living room door and saw the two of them, snuggled up on the couch, asleep like a couple. I stood there, frozen, unable to process what was happening right before my eyes. And from that day on, Sarah's visits to our home became frequent. She'd come over with Mike, and they'd casually start their evening drinks as if it was second nature. Hey, get us something to eat. I'd love a steak, please. Come on now. If you heard her, hurry up and get it. It felt as though I had been relegated to a mere housemaid, taken for granted. Mike doted on Sarah, and it was evident he hardly had me in his thoughts anymore. On her part, Sarah often threw condescending remarks my way, making me feel utterly humiliated. I'd never felt so low. My feelings towards the two of them were nothing but negative. Ever since Sarah started calling, I felt like I had been living in a never-ending nightmare. I bore the brunt of their taunts and verbal abuse. I often found myself wanting to escape this toxic environment. 6 months after Sarah started visiting, she suddenly stopped showing up. Around the same time, Mike began coming home even later. One morning, I woke up and noticed Mike wasn't in bed. I headed to the living room and found a note on the table. In Mike's handwriting, it simply read, "Gonna be on a business trip for a month." Seeing that, I was certain. I realized our marriage was over. One night, as I sat alone in the empty room lost in thought. What was that? In the middle of the night, while Mike was away, I suddenly heard the cries of a baby. I rushed to the front door and found a letter. It read, "I can't raise this child." Incredibly, inside the cardboard box was a baby, along with a letter.
Why is there a baby?
It was a situation I had only ever seen on TV shows, but now it was happening to me. My mind raced in panic, unsure of what to do, and before I knew it, I was calling my husband.
Don't bother me when I'm busy. You're disturbing me.
He was furious that I had called. But when I told him about the baby, he replied with shocking words.
We're gonna raise that child. Got it?
And with that, he hung up. His words lingered in my mind. Something was definitely up. But I had my own plans. I didn't care if 1 or 2 more troubles came up now. So, I'll uncover everything and bring you down to rock bottom. After that, I quickly grabbed some things and left the apartment. 2 hours by car. It's been a long time since I've been back. Even outside the apartment, there was a place for me to go.
Welcome home.
Mom, I'm back. I had already informed my mother that I would be returning. At the same time, I had asked her for a favor. Mom, about that favor I asked. I've made the contacts, Jessica. Now, all you need to do is act. Though I had come back to my parents' house thinking of resting and healing from everything, there was no time for that. My husband, Mike, would be back from his business trip in a month. I had things that needed to be done by then. One day, as I was cleaning the room, Mike called. Hello?
Hey! Where the heck are you right now?
My husband was immediately aggressive on the phone.
You call out of the blue? What on earth could someone on a business trip possibly want? I don't give a darn about that. Where are you?
I came back early. It's amazing you still have a job. Normally, you'd be the first on the layoff list.
Shut it. Just tell me where you are.
No matter what I said, Mike insisted on knowing my location, making it impossible to have a conversation. I'm at my parents' house.
The kid's there with you, right?
Yes, sleeping soundly in the back room. Come back with the child right now. Got it? Get back here immediately. His behavior was so different from before, it reminded me of the man he once was. You've changed a lot. You weren't like this before.
People change, Jessica. Anyway, don't forget what I just told you. Understand?
With that, Mike hung up. It's absurd. But if he hasn't mentioned that thing, does that mean he hasn't noticed it? If he returned to the apartment, he'd definitely see it. If that's the case, it makes sense. It became clear that Mike wasn't at the apartment. Not wanting to waste this opportunity, I drove straight there. Upon arriving, I grabbed that from the table and immediately headed to a specific location. 20 minutes later, I arrived at a single-family apartment complex. You live in a pretty nice place. There was a familiar compact car parked in front of the apartment. Just as I thought. A familiar compact car. It's Mike's car. And the fact that it's parked here is proof that my husband must be here. What could be so important that he'd cut his business trip short to be here? At that moment. Then it happened. From inside the house, I heard a woman scream. And right after that, a man's furious shout echoed. This might be bad. I quickly pulled out my cell from my bag and called someone. However, throughout that time, cries from the woman and shouts from the man continued to emanate from the house. Just when I was getting really worried, a car pulled up behind me. Oh. I rang the doorbell, but no one answered. On a whim, I tried the doorknob and to my surprise, it was unlocked. I cautiously opened the door and called out, but there was no response. From deeper within the house, a voice cried out for help. Rushing to the room from where the voice came, I found a man menacingly approaching Sarah with a look of fury on his face. Why are you here? What are you doing? You shouldn't be threatening a woman like this, especially as an adult.
Shut up. Stay out of it. This is between me and her.
A problem, huh? I couldn't help but think, isn't the problem yourself, in my mind?
Jessica. Please help me. He suddenly attacked me.
All right. I can see what's happening, so you don't have to spell it out for me.
Well, what? You just told him not to treat women like this. And now you're being so dismissive of me? Can't you see I'm in distress?
That's because I get it, okay? Just be quiet for a second. I've got things to handle. While Sarah was complaining about something, I had more pressing matters to attend to. I have more important things to deal with than that. I stepped outside the house for a moment and headed towards a car parked outside. I called out, "Excuse me," and from inside the car, a well-built man stepped out. And with that man, I headed back to the room where the two were. Who's this old man?
Why's he here?
Upon seeing the new arrival, both of them froze. Allow me to introduce you. This is Sarah's father, Mr. Carter.
What?
Seeing Sarah's father, Mike instantly distanced himself from Sarah, a complete change from his previous demeanor. On the other hand, Sarah's face turned pale as a ghost at the sight of her father and she froze, looking down. Nice to meet you. I'm Carter, Sarah's father. Jessica called me over. What the heck is going on here? Sarah, what's your relationship with this man? The two clearly looked intimidated by Carter's imposing tone and demeanor. He's my husband.
What? So, you're telling me you were having an affair with my daughter?
Well, that's one way to put it. At that moment, Carter's face turned fierce, glaring at Mike with piercing eyes. Mike looked like a deer caught in headlights, completely frozen. Soon, Carter's face was inches away from Mike's. Mike looked utterly clueless about what to do next. You made your bed, now lie in it. It wasn't clear if it was these words that broke Mike's spirit, but he collapsed on the spot. From her bag, I took out a paper and placed it in front of Mike. I think you'll understand when you see it, it's a divorce paper. My name's already on it. You just need to sign. She also placed a pen next to it. Defeated, Mike signed the divorce paper without resistance. Thanks. As for alimony, my lawyer will be in touch later. We'll discuss the details then. Mike silently nodded. But this incident wasn't over. Standing nearby was the very man who had ruined Jessica's life. You're truly despicable. You played with my feelings, always threatening to leave. And this is how you end things? Jessica spat these words out at her ex-husband. But, to her surprise, he responded with newfound vigor.
You say I played with you? Don't kid yourself. You were the one who approached me first. Saying you had feelings for me. Saying you wanted to be with me. If it wasn't for you, my life wouldn't have turned out this way. What the heck? Anyone who'd take that seriously is the fool. First off, thinking you're some big catch is your first mistake. Because of you, my life's a complete mess. Being seen by my dad in a place like this is just the worst. Huh? What's that supposed to mean? If anyone's the worst here, it's you. I turned you down, but you kept saying you wanted our baby. And when the baby came, you said it wasn't what you intended, that you didn't expect to really have a child. That you wanted to live your life and wanted a break, but you didn't want the responsibility of the child. So, leave it to me, right? You're way more to be blamed. I didn't say all that.
This is going nowhere, and listening to this nonsense is just a waste of time. Okay, stop. I've heard enough from both of you, just cut it out. You're making everyone irritated. The two looked over, panting, as if wanting to say something. I could tell they wanted to say something, but probably seeing Carter standing next to me, they seemed too scared to utter a word. I get it, if you have a big, intimidating guy like that staring you down, you'd be too scared to say anything. Then Carter suddenly asked Sarah, "What's going on with this story? Are you pregnant with his child?"
Oh, no, Dad, it's not like that. I didn't want this, but he was so pushy.
Darn it. I completely forgot to mention that Sarah was pregnant.
What? Why are you blaming me? You were the one who came on to me. It's not true. I didn't do anything. How can a baby come if you didn't do anything?
Adding fuel to the fire. You.
That's right. If you hadn't done anything, none of this would have happened. I probably shouldn't have invited him in the first place. Hey, hold on.
She added more. I thought we were pretty much done, but since we're here, I'll give you this. I casually tossed several photos onto the table. Those pictures undeniably proved their affair. These are pictures capturing the two of you in the act. It was a real hassle getting these. While you were on your business trip, I had the divorce papers drawn up and hired a detective. All this in such a short time, you know? Why would you go through all that trouble? Well, I had to. I can draw up the divorce papers myself, but to catch you two cheating, I needed a pro. It did cost me a pretty penny, but thanks to that, I got the evidence. I'm just presenting it a bit late, but you have to really take in the fact that you cheated, right? The sight of the incriminating photos completely deflated the two. Just as they thought it was over. You two better be ready for what's coming. What? Dad. Carter only found out about Sarah and Mike's affair moments ago. And it was only from words. Upon seeing the photos, he realized that they really were having an affair. Sarah, I'm taking you straight home. We'll decide what to do next once we're there. And Mike, you'll have to pay Jessica alimony, right? You need the money ASAP, don't you? I know a place where you can make good money. Upon hearing this, both were trembling in fear. Days later, both of them resigned from their jobs. The reason was that news of their affair had spread throughout the office, making it uncomfortable for them to stay. Later, as Carter told it, Sarah tried to go back to her parents' home and hoped they would forgive her. However, their anger didn't subside, and she was kicked out along with her baby. Now, she's living in a rundown apartment, working day and night to support her child. As for her ex-husband, he's working at a high-paying job Carter recommended to cover the alimony and child support. Apparently, it's a job at sea, and once he leaves, he can't return for several months. Well, after such a betrayal, it's only fitting. As for me, I stayed at my parents' home. My mother helps with the housework, and I have found a new job and made some new friends. Life feels more fulfilling now. My parents often ask when I'll marry again, but I think I'll wait for a while. Maybe when I meet the right person, I'll think about it. For now, I want to enjoy this life.